All right, let's get into this. I'm Glenn. Welcome to my show, The Business of Making Art. All of my material is for people who love what they do, or more likely, they want to love what they do. So I'm going to talk to some people from Atlantic Canada about their work and what it takes to make something of yourself here on the East Coast. My guest today is Max Medyk. Max is the founder and CEO of I'm Canada Media, based in Halifax. I'm Canada is the biggest online community of international students in the country. To put it simply, Max and his team help people move to Canada. Excellent. Max Medyk, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
This is the first episode of this podcast and this video show. It's a variety show called The Business of Making Art. The whole reason I started this show is because I want to show Atlantic Canadians who are out there doing something, making something, being entrepreneurial, being artistic, and putting something together to make a living doing it, and to show what that takes in an effort to encourage other people that they can do it too. Or maybe they see an element of what my guests do and they can emulate that and do better at their job. So, Max, what do you think of that? What do you think of that concept for Atlantic Canada?
I think it's perfect. This market is so underrated. Not many people realize, but the competition is extremely low in Atlantic Canada compared to the rest of the country and the US. So there's tremendous opportunity that many people are missing out on by overlooking this part of Canada.
So when you say opportunity, that there is potential, are you saying that there is room for Atlantic Canadians to excel, or are you saying that we're maybe not making the mark overall? What do you think about that? Can you clarify that for me?
Sure. Atlantic Canada is a market that's developing, I think. If we look at it, I can compare it to Southeast Asia. In 50 years, Forbes projects incredible growth for India, let's say, to surpass countries like China and perhaps the US in 2075. And I see that analogy to Atlantic Canada in a way that the area is growing. Many Canadians are moving to Atlantic Canada. Many international students, immigrants are choosing this place. So if we look at 20, 30 years from now, the big goal by 2060 is a 2 million population. That's going to bring a lot of opportunities to different sectors, not just to real estate, but anything that supports people relocating. That's how I see it.
So is it maybe time for maybe a little kick in the pants for young people thinking about being entrepreneurial? Maybe there's lots of opportunity there. That's what you're seeing?
Tremendous opportunity, absolutely.
Well, great. Well, let's dig into you and see what we can get.
Sure.
All right. So just so my viewers know, I have shared these questions with you. I wanted you to be able to think about them. I wanted you to ponder them. I'm not a journalist. And so, and I respect journalists. Obviously, they have a lot of credibility. And I miss them on Facebook, a little commentary there. But that aside, let's talk about what we're doing. So, Max, I met you by connecting with you on LinkedIn. I've seen a lot of your online material, which is extensive, by the way. I think I counted 4 or 5 platforms that you're on, and the total number of people that you have following you is about 300,000. Is that be about right still?
A little over that, yeah.
Oh, it's still growing.
Yeah, now it's about 330,000, I believe.
Well, that's significant. Okay, 330,000 people, and keeping growing. I'm just getting to know LinkedIn and how I can use it for my own practice, for the consulting side of things that I do, and any work that I do. LinkedIn lets you show a very concise, very brief description of what you're about, right under your name. Yours says, making Canada the #1 destination for students and entrepreneurs. Tell me how you came up with that, and what does that mean?
Absolutely. So I'm originally from Ukraine, but having spent 1/3 of my life living abroad in different countries, was the US, New Zealand, now it's Canada, I realized one thing, that immigrants are future leaders in many industries. They move to a country, they build so much resilience that let's say 10, 20% of those who really make it, they make it big, and they are business leaders. Some of them go into policy making. These people can really drive a country. If we look at the US, it's a great example, and people underestimate the power of that. Why is the United States the most economically advanced nation? Many of it came from immigration. So I see my mission as driving Canada forward, advancing it by helping attract talent. And by talent, I mean students and entrepreneurs.
We're going to get into a little bit later, we're going to get into how you work with people, but I want to stay on what you're doing first. So, how did you get into this? Like, I'm seeing all kinds of passion in your work. I'm seeing, like I say, you're doing video, you're talking to lots of people. I'm seeing lots of people in these videos, and you seem really happy about it. You know, and you look like on the video, it's coming out that you enjoy what you do.
Mhm.
I think that's key.
Absolutely.
Yes, exactly. So, where does this passion come from, and how do you keep that up? How do you keep up that energy?
It's hard not to have this passion if you communicate with real people. I'm not just some virtual influencer or something like that. You know, one of the things I do is, yeah, social media. And that social media comes with a lot of communication points, even personal communication points. What I mean by that is we sometimes host events. This summer we did one in Vancouver, two in Halifax. And I connected with so many folks from different walks of life who really came to Canada with big dreams, big goals. Some of them are accomplishing those as of now, others are just starting. But when they come to you and say that you've really changed your life, you've really changed my life, that means a lot to me, and that's what keeps me going. One case that really stands out is recently we had some clients with my law firm, people who moved from Palestine 2 months previously. So the war started, as you know, like about 1 month ago. And had they stayed in the country, they would have been killed. And I'm saying this because the house where they lived was bombed. The school that the person taught at, she was a teacher, got attacked. There was a missile that hit the school. So had they stayed, they most likely would have been killed. And when they come to you and say that you literally saved our life, this is when it becomes about them. It's bigger than you. It's not about me, it's about them. So I don't have the audacity to say, oh, I give up, or I'm feeling uninspired to do it, you know?
There are real stakes attached to what you do, and you realize what those stakes are. And in that case, we're talking about somebody who would have been in a position where they could have been in real harm's way. We're not talking danger, we're talking life and death. Now, that's amazing. I'm just curious, when people tell you that, how does that make you feel in that moment?
It's hard to describe when somebody talks about life and death, you know. I can't even comprehend the importance of this,
Mm.
because this person can really contribute to wherever she chooses to live. And I'm thankful that she chose Canada, and now her family is going to, I'm sure, be an add to this economy.
You know, I kind of like that, is that the idea is that if we had more room, if there was more, if we could build housing faster, if we could build infrastructure faster, if we could build the kind of things you would need to bring people in, I think you're one of those people that'd be like, okay, well, let's bring people in. Am I right there?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we can build that infrastructure, right? The work is being done. There is some motion in place as we see a lot of updates from the federal government, provincial. Hopefully, they will accelerate. But I think once they start rolling with it, we'll see more progress.
Well, I'm actually interested in that because as I fish for guests from Atlantic Canada, because I look for Atlantic Canadians who do interesting work or
Mhm.
topical work in Atlantic Canada to talk to, I'm interested in talking to some folks about the construction industry. One of the missions that I want to do with this project and with other things is to try to show young men in particular, but all young people, that the construction, the trades, the kind of things that help build these things
Yeah.
can be lucrative and do well for them as young people. But you work with generally a lot of international students and immigrants and things like that. Are they thinking the same thing? Are they thinking about building trades? Are they thinking about that kind of thing?
A lot of them are, because they see trades as one of those industries in high demand that gives opportunity, financial and opportunity for further growth. So many immigrants want to be in trades. Many of them actually build the housing that we need. So I think that keeping the same targets that we have or increasing them, I'm talking about immigration targets, would tremendously benefit Canada and help with the housing living crisis.
Good. I'm going to go back here. You and I have something in common. And what that is that we've both worked extensively with provincial governments. I worked for 13 years with the government of Nova Scotia as a comms person. They have an extensive comms team, and I was part of that team. But you've worked with several governments across Canada, provincial governments across Canada, on marketing campaigns. That I assume is your technical speciality going into this with
Yeah.
marketing, social media, that kind of thing. What does that kind of work look like? And like what kind of work is that? And how does that benefit your 330,000 followers across platforms?
hmm Well, first of all, I certainly do not have 13 years behind my belt like you do, but we've done some work with provinces, Nova Scotia, Alberta, to put them on the map, really. That's what I do. To give you a good example, Alberta was excellent. Minister Nicolaitis and Premier Jason Kenney at the time, they were extremely invested in this idea that I put on the table to use something unique and innovative to promote Alberta, and we had a video with many universities. They played a really pivotal role in that by helping make it interesting for international students across the country to choose, or across the world to choose Alberta as their destination. Everybody knows about Toronto, Vancouver, the big players like BC and Ontario, but places like Alberta are underestimated, and so is Nova Scotia. So I think that was a really good way to add to Alberta's might and growth in the future. And we saw amazing feedback of probably over 1,000 comments, people who told me that now they've got accepted by one of those schools that we showcased during the video. And now we see that decision makers are really interested in talent and in international students, which gives you a level of transparency and interest that's very difficult to emulate if you're not speaking directly to decision makers.
Decision makers. So the people who I want to just see what you think of what that process looks like. So if you had something to bring to a decision maker, it doesn't matter what kind of politician it is, but somebody in a position, maybe perhaps an elected position, or maybe an executive director of something big, or some kind of a leadership position. How would you approach that? What would your first instinct be to get in the room with them, or to get your message heard by a decision maker?
Mm-hmm. My strategy has always been to establish a win-win situation where you're not asking, you're offering. And if you're offering, that creates some open doors for you. Once your offer is received and there's value that can be, I guess, that you can get from it, then you can start speaking about what you get out of it, right? So for me, that's always been the approach. And whatever I do, look for a win-win.
So you're saying you don't attack them right off the bat.
Oh, absolutely not.
Exactly. I think we're on the same page there. I'll tell you what, let's take a break because I want to end my very first section one, and we'll come back with some more right after this.
Yeah, absolutely.
For value-focused, step-by-step videos about moving to Canada and becoming successful, check out I'm Canada on YouTube. The channel just reached over 100,000 subscribers, and there's a new video every week. Look for I'm Canada on YouTube and other platforms, and if you like it, don't forget to leave a like. Because what happens is that I can see everything I need to see to control it on my own.
Yeah.
So I know I can do this, but you're easy because you are used to doing this sort of thing.
Yeah.
If I had a guest who wasn't used to doing this sort of thing, I would probably have one of the students at the volunteer radio station, CIOE, come in and be my producer, just flip buttons.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably borrow that nice deck, that nice multi-camera deck. That's my next piece of equipment that I need, because then I can control everything on one station.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the next step.
But you have an editor. So that means, so you have a bit of a staff, or do you, how does that work? Do you have multiple people?
Yeah, so the law firm has just 2 lawyers, and on the social media side of things, we have the video editor, we have a social media manager for China, and then we have software team, but they're more like contractors.
Oh, I see.
2 of them.
Same with me. I have a web person that I work with, but he is I hire him, but we have a contract. It works out really great actually, because I don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
That's for software. So like AI involvement that I have is related to that. So three things like social media, law firm, and then AI. So AI, I contract out the software people.
So who you're working with, just describe to me the complexity of how you operate and your practice. You have three components. You have your social media and
so social media is marketing department essentially.
Okay, perfect.
And then we have operations, which is lawyers. And then we have AI. That's something new. We started in the beginning of this year just to replace the need for expensive lawyers for people who cannot afford them.
So what? Okay, that's interesting. What are these lawyers? What kind of work are these lawyers doing, and for who?
Yeah. So if, let's say, in general, my mission is to support immigrants, international students, newcomers. If they need any legal support, if they're having any challenges related to their status, all of that stuff, we can come in and help them. So the approach has always been social media. Information is free. We shared like the most accessible and premium information for free. If you want to do it yourself, go ahead. But if you want implementation, that's extra charge. So if you want us to do it for you, here's the law firm. There you go.
So what would you call your law firm's specialty as one blanket kind of a name?
Student immigration. We definitely focus on that. That's our main customer.
Okay.
Anything that, starting study permit when they want to move to Canada on a student visa, and then all the way up to citizenship.
So you are literally helping people get here and get established.
Move and settle down. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I call that get established, but it's the same thing. It's like you're here
I like
to stay.
that. I like that more. Yeah. Or succeed, I like to say.
Either way though, these are all synonymous because you're helping people come here for good.
Yeah.
Like they want to become Atlantic Canadians or Canadians in this case, because you service the whole country.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's interesting. Okay. Well, that was great. That's all off script, by the way. So very good.
Yeah.
Max, and this is a good segue actually, because I want to talk about your audience now. As I make these episodes and as I do my work, I always have to keep my audience in mind. That's a rule for artists. It's a rule for entrepreneurs. Who are you selling to? Who are you serving? That kind of thing. So I'm continuously asking myself if the thing I'm making is helpful for them. Because if it's not, then they're not going to watch it. They're not going to benefit from it. There's nothing in it for them. There's no value in it for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I'd like to ask you is that that's my goal. My goal is to give them value. What's your goal? You just described it a little bit, but what's your goal in terms of your audience? What value are you bringing for your audience?
We align on that, Glenn. I think my goal is to also bring value. And the way I see value for my audience is empowering them with tools and systems they need to succeed in Canada. So that's, legal, obviously. That's their status. And second is different support systems. For example, one of the things we launched was Job Helper. It's an AI tool that helps you make a custom resume, cover letter, and now it's going to also have some other features in version 2. So that's hopefully going to help them break down the barrier of employment, which is often quite an issue for immigrants.
Well, I'm just thinking. Let's talk about the application process for a second. So a lot of these people are coming from places that might not even be considered Western places. Right. That means everything works completely different than it would work here. So something as simple as a job application for me, or for someone in the West, so to speak, is going to be run of the mill. You're going to understand what those lines mean. You're going to understand the significance of why somebody would want to ask for that thing. Yeah. But some coming from elsewhere, I'm imagining, because like I say, it's hard to put yourself in an immigrant's shoes, but and it's something maybe I'd like to try to do more. But I'm imagining that they might have trouble understanding even why such a thing would be important. Tell me, do you help them connect the dots? Do you help them? I know you help them literally fill it out, but do they come out with an understanding of a little bit better of an understanding of the culture here? As they apply for jobs, as they look for stuff, are they getting an understanding? Are they getting to know how things work here? And I'm imagining that would be an uphill for them.
Well, first of all, I think it's important to highlight that I believe in the West, we often complicate things. So let's say you're looking for an employee, you have a problem, you want to satisfy that problem. We often add a lot of tech into the mix, which can make it easier or more complicated. So automatic tracking systems, ATS, that sort out applications. Let's say you get 200 applications, and if an application doesn't have a 50% match in keywords, it's automatically discarded.
Hmm.
So essentially, for immigrants who don't understand that concept, they just send out one really good resume to 20 employers, and they just don't know that with the ATS system, they're just being thrown out those applications because there is not enough match. So customizing resumes, that's one of the things that they don't come across in their countries. It's not to say that the hiring process is different, it's just that there's more tech involved,
Oh, I see.
and
Okay.
that complicates things. So we use tech to simplify the complicated tech.
And you're probably helping them, say, do up a specific resume for a specific job,
Oh
because
yeah.
the tech would probably recognize that you can't just send out a blanket piece to everyone, because people might recognize that as such, especially if you were applying for a job that, say, if I'm going to fumble this wording a little bit, but a job of caliber, say say you were a lawyer in some other country, and then here you don't. This country would consider that you don't have the qualifications to be a lawyer. You might have to take the bar again. Well, you have some work to do there. I'm just saying is that all of a sudden you're applying for jobs, but you're also applying to get up to speed with whatever requirements that this place would have. Do you get a lot of that? Do you get a lot of people who have a lot of skill, who are really specialized, but they have trouble getting into that thing they used to do somewhere else? But now here they're having there are hurdles. There are hurdles to jump.
Absolutely. And there's two sides of this coin. One is, as you said, like high caliber, something like a lawyer, doctor, which is highly regulated.
Mhm.
Another side of this is high caliber, but not regulated. So, for example, they were, I don't know, running marketing for a big company in their home country. And now they can't get that job in Canada because they don't understand the power of networking, the power of personal brand. And when people move, when people immigrate, they often come with this a preconceived notion that in the West, everything is very different. It's very not about who you know, but about what you know. However, people who think that are often quite delusional. And they see, when you're born in a country, you grew up there, as you're growing there, you are naturally networking, you're connecting with your classmates, you go to school, you connect with professors, with instructors. So by just simply being born in a place and growing up there, you have this network already established. So it becomes easier to get a job because people trust you. They have known you for so long. Versus if you're an immigrant, you're new, you need to establish that trust before you can go any further and look for high caliber jobs.
And like I say, that's something I wouldn't understand, because I can't. Because okay, I'm living in the place where I was born. I was born in Atlantic Canada, and my family is Atlantic Canadian, and then people would know my name would be familiar to them, and so just those little things, those things alone that's my foot in the door. And so, like I say, but I myself, I'm bigger on merit than who you know and where you came from. I'm on what my big thing, like I say, and this is something for entrepreneurs, artists, stuff like that. It's very based on merit. Can you do the work? Are you better at doing the work and getting the result than the other person? To me, as an entrepreneurial mind, and I'm sure you have this too, is that there's nothing more important for my business, for my enterprise, for my organization, than hiring people who are good at it. And so my question for you is that tell me about the talent. Tell me about what is the potential for employers, for people who have a spot to give somebody a chance to do good work for them that's going to benefit them. What's the potential of people coming in from other places and becoming new Canadians? What is the potential there for employers?
Really high potential. And also, from an employer standpoint, usually by giving an immigrant a chance, you not only fulfill your labor gap, but you also lower your costs because many of them are ready to start at a lower pay and eventually get to a higher salary. That's one. But two, you talked about merit. Yes, most people want to hire on merit. It's very rare that somebody intentionally hires by connections because nepotism doesn't lead to great results. You simply hire someone who's not qualified. So most people, most employers, most companies want to hire on merit, but subconsciously, when you're looking to fill a role, if you miss, if you hire someone wrong, you've wasted a lot of money because you've trained them, you've spent time, you can't get back that time, you can't get the money back. So that's where subconsciously they start thinking, all right, let me hire someone I can trust. How do I do that? By getting references. So let me talk to my friends who can reference someone, who can recommend me an employee or help me hire someone. So their intention isn't that vicious. Oh, I'm gonna hire only based on people I know. They're just trying to help their business grow by not wasting money on training someone who's not capable. That's where that connection comes in, and that's where I feel networking is a tool that will unlock a lot of opportunities for you.
Okay, so follow up on that. What would you say would be what would be good advice for someone who is asking, how do I just arrived here. I did some study and I've done some paperwork. What do I do? What do I do now to get to build that network? What's my first step?
Many people fail when they think that the first step to networking is to show up to a networking event. I think it's how you program yourself to failure because you have not established something yet, or you don't have something you're known for, and then you start putting yourself out there. The brand you're building now is not something positive, it's something needy, right? That's the last thing you want to come across as, somebody needy. Um, it's different though if in your home country you've already established something great and you can come to that event with, let's say, a portfolio of employment, businesses, achievements, whatever. But for most people who don't have that, I would start off by becoming specialized in something, by building a name in something. It could be something as simple as volunteering, even for an organization, just getting your foot in the door that way. And then eventually that's something you can bring up, that's something unique to you. Let's say I'm passionate about helping stray cats. I don't know, whatever you want to volunteer in. Maybe it's an orphanage, right? Um, Once you've done that, you can go out there. That's the second step, into the world, into a networking event, a conference. And when you start a conversation, you will no longer come across as someone empty and needy, but someone who can add. And that goes back to my first thing, win-win. How can you establish a win-win? That's the core to networking.
You know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like the advice could be whittled down to the phrase, go and make yourself useful and be kind about it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like people, that if you're making yourself useful, it means you're getting in there. You want to do something meaningful. Volunteering is a great way to do that. It's a good way to introduce yourself to the community. I can totally see that. Another thing too is that if you go volunteer, you're going to run into not only people that you're helping, you're also going to run into other volunteers, like-minded people who are making themselves useful, who are kind and stuff. All kinds of people taking. That's how you make friends, I suppose. I like that advice.
And I'm really glad that I started my business in 2020 during the pandemic because I was limited. I couldn't physically attend networking events because there was none happening.
Oh, yes, of course.
Right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
had I had that chance, maybe I would have been tempted to go out there without having established something tangible, right? Now I have a business, now we do AI, all that cool stuff, law firm. But before I didn't have all that. So had I done networking previously, I think it would have hurt my personal brand, not helped it.
Ah, yeah, the pandemic had that. It took a lot of things away, especially for networking. Face to face went away, so that was
Yeah.
completely gone. And then, but now, would you say that now we are way out of that? Now all the opportunities are back completely. Is there anything lingering? Do you think?
200% more than before.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Lots of opportunity then, and it's right there.
Yes.
Let's see here. Oh yes. Okay, creating what you've created. So you've been describing to me kind of how you work, what you do for people, and what your audience is. But creating all of that, putting all that together for you. Now I'm talking about you now, Max.
Mm-hmm.
putting all that together, it looks like it took a lot of work. You probably had to, you had to probably make some sacrifices. You probably had to work hard, put your head down. You might have even eaten peanut butter sandwiches for a period. Who knows? The point is that what kind of sacrifices did you have to make to put together your practice, and what and do you have plans to grow that?
Absolutely. So probably the most personal sacrifice was when the war in Ukraine started, and I'm Ukrainian, as I said, off script, I think. When the war just broke off, my mom, she traveled to Canada just, to be safe for the time. And because I was still very involved, especially back then, it was the beginning of 2022, a lot of work, the beginning of the year. Um, I had to create something called office hours for my mom. So I would, limit my interaction with my parents and everybody going through that crisis just because I couldn't put my business on hold because I'm not just doing it for myself. As I mentioned before, it's thousands of people on the line. I don't want to let them down. So even though personally speaking, I was quite, and this is going to be an understatement, but very disturbed and horrified by what was happening in my home country, I still had to put some limits and take my business and put it on this pedestal while removing my personal life out of the equation.
So you came over in 2020.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So that means everything you've put together everything you have now. You're 330.
Sorry, I moved in 2019, so 4 years.
But either way, we're talking 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
You have 330,000 followers across your platforms.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably working with dozens of people at a time in terms of case files and stuff like that for your law with your lawyers and whatnot. You put all that together in 4 years, and you're rolling now. Would you say that you have found the? Would you say you're established?
I would say I'm getting started. I don't think this is established. Like, yes, I'm helping people, and there is some output, great. But I think there's a lot more to achieve.
So, what are you seeing? What do you see as your moment where you've realized your dream and now you can work the dream? What would that look like?
That moment will happen when I can remove discrimination barriers that immigrants face, and that's legislation. So, for example, we have this age regulation where immigrants who want to get permanent residency to make Canada their home, if they are over 40, they start dramatically losing points because of age. So, in the system, it's very difficult for them to make Canada their home, no matter what contribution they make. And bear in mind, people who move here at 40, 50, they have a lot of capital they bring into the country. They have a lot of skill sets, they have connections, they have so many things to add, but Canada wants to remove them almost. And we help them overcome that in various forms by immigration pathways and all that. However, it would be amazing if in the future I could, on a more streamlined level, like federal legislation, remove that from the Immigration Act. That would be the big goal for me.
I'm going to wish you luck. As somebody who has written up literally hundreds of communications plans to attach to pieces of legislations, to bills, to all kinds of things at the provincial level here in Nova Scotia, here in Atlantic Canada. I know that it's all process. It's all a big process. So you start the process by the way. Here's my picture of it. So to change legislation, do anything to legislation. Say you were say you were somebody in an advocacy group, or maybe you're just an individual doing that.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing you do is you have to get your support. So there, you have to go. You can't just show up there and say like, okay, I want the change. You have to have support, and that support has to be credible. Maybe some numbers, maybe a petition, whatever that looks like. Could be followers, whatever. Something to show that there's a bigger group of people that are interested in this. The second thing, and that happens with degrees of success, of course,
Mhm.
and that's hard to measure. Then the second thing is to bring it to the table. And so what that usually involves picking out the right decision maker who has maybe the ear of the leader of whatever governing party, and then because that's where all decisions are made, is whoever the leader is. And
Right.
this is not just provincial. This is how
Yeah.
governments work. And then you support that process as it goes. So if the legislation process has like a place where you go and you have a chance to speak up, well, you make sure people go and they show up. If some kind of a demonstration is required, you think, because that's all judgment, then you organize those. You stay in the line. I guess what I'm saying, Max, is that I know it's a lot of work, but I'm seeing in you in terms of what I've seen on LinkedIn. What I'm seeing in you is someone who is capable of climbing that mountain without getting frustrated by it. Of course, you're going to have frustrating days, but I mean, it's a lofty goal, is my point. And most people, in my experience, they give up. I'm saying is, can you see a point where you think your goal is not attainable to the point where you'd have to change it or give up on it? Or are you the kind of person that's going to go and you're going to make sure you get that? Even if you don't do it, you'll die trying, so to speak.
Mhm.
What's your attitude about that?
My attitude is that it's a marathon. Eventually, I'm gonna reach my destination, but I don't see it as a race. I think that's why people give up. They see it as a race, and I've had this similar experience with a petition that we started in summer. There was this scandal in Ontario where it's kind of unprecedented, hasn't happened before, where one college canceled 504 international student applications, students who had been enrolled into the school by the school itself, simply because of oversubscription. So the college didn't do math right. They were hoping that more students would be refused for their study permits than actually what they had. So, because of that overestimation, the decision that they made was, let's now revoke 504 students. All of those students made a security deposit of, I believe, $16,000. So if you do the math, it's like $8 million on the line for the school. And now they revoked them. And that was in July for the September intake. So the time frame was less than 2 months. In that time, you can no longer come to Canada as an international student for that intake. You would need to go to a different school. You would lose some money in admin fees and all that. And the worst thing is that they had already received their student visas, those students. So for them to do the whole process again, that legal barrier, and to go up the hill again, that's very difficult. So we put together a petition. I collected about 1,000 signatures in 2 weeks or so. And again, thanks to social media, all that. But the petition was asking for the provincial minister of education of Ontario to put in a system that would prevent schools from doing that, because it ruins Ontario's reputation, I believe. You no longer trust that institution or even the provincial government.
So you established a safeguard.
Yeah, a safeguard essentially, so that schools would be responsible for not doing their math wrong.
So what happened? So just to cap that off, though, what happened? So what happened with those 400 or so students? Did they
500? Yeah,
500? Sorry, did they end up getting to go, or did they have to do the program again? Did they have to go and find new places to be?
I would say 50-50. So half of them gave up on Canada.
Okay.
Half of them looked for a different option, which is a different school. The school which accepted them, they offered to give them a different program. So they had seats for another program, and they would like just spread them around that school. But again, they would need to apply for a new study permit, because legally speaking, they cannot come with a study permit that says, let's say, business administration when you're studying architecture. You need to apply for a new student visa.
See, Max, this work that you're talking about is a lot more extensive than, say, what somebody might picture. If they just heard what you do, it's like giving out information, maybe talking to people, giving people tips on how to do resumes. No, you're getting right into it and really affecting laws, basically, that
Yeah.
that help immigrants know get here and get established.
Mhm.
One last question in this section before I move into
Mhm.
the before, and then we'll move out of the business, so to speak. Max, if I could grant wishes, if I'm a genie, this is something I want to try. Trying to get to the point of with this question. You're the first one, so I'll explain it a little bit for my audience. Is that the reason I'm saying this is because usually people who work like you do have needs to do that work better or more, or to serve whoever you're serving. You need stuff. You know what I mean? It often involves asking for it. Sometimes it's to go get it, but you need things. So I guess I want to ask, if I were a genie and I could grant wishes, and I'm not talking about snap my fingers and then all the immigrants in the world just have everything they need. I'm saying to do well, for you to do well at what you do, what are you wishing for? What do you need?
I think I have everything I need to make it happen. It's just about, again, marathon running, for running toward the goal and giving it enough time. Maybe one thing that would really help accelerate this progress would be, if the decision makers who were more interested in assisting immigrants and helping realize this vision of a better, stronger Canada with the help of immigration, if they were on board and they could accelerate my work by just supporting petitions like that or whatnot, you know?
So a greater awareness and maybe some more support in that from the attitude level.
Yeah. Not just edited, but action, right? Something tangible. So we can talk about whatever we want, but actions are louder than words. Why not, be on board with what really, yeah, that.
Very good. Okay, we'll take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to go to section 3 of my of the show, "The Business of Making Art," and that's where I'm going to see what Max is reading, what he's doing. All right, we'll be back in a sec. Hey, everybody. This that you're listening to right now is available in both podcast and video. So if you'd rather watch or you'd rather listen, go to glenfriel.com. Podcast, video, blog, it's all there. And thank you so much for the support out of the gate. I don't have a printer. Otherwise, I would have printed these. See, if I print them, I just have a piece of paper. I don't have to keep turning on a big unnecessary machine to do this, but I could just print
That's
it off.
easier, I think.
I love this thing, by the way, because I love pen writing. And this I have it's an app called Nebo, Nebo. It's available for both. They don't sponsor me, nothing. I wish they would. Hey, Nebo, throw me a few bucks. I'm sitting here showing you all the work I'm doing. But I love it because you can write it in writing and it will turn it into typing text, and then I can edit it in print.
Wow.
And it does it all pretty, the technology's great.
I know, it's another level.
And you're actually getting into some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Which actually leads me into the question. I don't even think I need to look at it here because we just talked about it. Like I said, this third section is in a bit of an experiment. I want to get to know what you do and kind of something about you. And so myself, I read audiobooks. I play hockey. I do I spend a lot of time with my daughter, and so and I do a bunch of other stuff. But you're really into the networking we just discussed. So I thought I'd ask you, instead of asking you what you're into, I thought I'd ask you, what does networking look like? What is your approach to networking? And what are some things that maybe you could tell some people that to maybe help them do that? Because that is important to the people you serve.
So one thing that can set you apart is, again, value first. So lead with value. Offer something, and that's how you get the person's interest and attention. Win-win. That's my biggest approach to networking. Also understanding who you can help and how they can help you going in. That's important. It's kind of like you play a chess game. You need to anticipate their moves and think about how you can help their moves.
Tell me about some of these networking events. What do they look like? So say I were to show up to one, and I very well could. I could be supportive of people coming in. I could go and introduce myself. Maybe I end up working with somebody with some skills. What does that look like for me? If I'm an Atlantic Canadian, and I've lived here all my life, say I've spent some time in Montreal, but you know what I mean. I'm a Canadian. And say I'm going and networking. What is the kind of networking event that you go to? What does that look like, you think, from my perspective? What are the kind of things that I can do there?
So two sections, I would say, and this will really vary based on your goals. But since legislation is something I'm interested in, it's one section is political events, and then the second one would be, I would say, education-related events. So with schools, with different lawyers in education field specifically. The first segment of political events, what I mean by that is events such as um, social meaning events. So, for example, the most recent example that comes up is Mount St. Vincent University had their 150th anniversary. And that's where a lot of people came together, a lot of not just policymakers, but academia. So, a lot of university professors and the presidents of the school, ex presidents, all that stuff. That's a great opportunity to meet people who are doing great stuff. Also, I would say if you're interested in going deeper, fundraisers is a good one. So if you go to a political fundraiser, it's a good way to understand who you're working with and what their goals are, understand what they're looking to get, and see how you can help them get there.
Let's go. Okay, I want to go back to the political event. Something I've been to. I've been to a lot of political events. Obviously, I've organized them. They're not really political though. I was public service, so I would have been like working for like the minister in that role. They would have had political people with them. But what I mean by political event is we're talking about politicians at an event. We're
Mhm.
talking about leaders. We're talking about
Yeah,
elected people there. And that
elected people. Yeah.
exactly that's why they're there. So I know what you're saying. But let's go back to those ones for a second. So let's say we have a new Canadian. They just arrived. They've done their paperwork. They've found somewhere to live, and they're maybe looking for a job. Say
Mhm.
let's say they're looking for a job, and let's say they get invited or they hear about an event where there are going to be leaders and people there. What does that look like for them when they arrive? What should they be doing at that event? Should they be, for example, should they be shaking hands? Should they be introducing themselves? Should they be waiting for people, like they're kind of making themselves visible? What do you think? What do you think they should be doing when they arrive there? And remember, they just arrived on the shore, so to speak.
I would say it's good to know the weather before you leave your house. So check the forecast, check who might be there, who might not be there, and see if that's the type of event you're interested in. See if like those people are the ones you really want to meet. Um, if yes, then you can always look into what they are up to now, and you can find something you like about them. There's always something interesting about anyone you can meet, and no matter their rank or their position, if they're elected or not. There's always something interesting about everybody. So I would go into that event as prepared as possible in terms of knowing who will be there or who might be there. And B, I would say you can always succeed by not expecting anything, by simply, as you said, shaking their hand and not even talking about yourself, but trying to get to know them and see what they're up to. People love talking about themselves. They love when you ask them about what they do and stuff. So
I'm depending on that for my business model, by the way. I'm depending on that people like talking about themselves. It's interesting because it's human nature. It's human nature to
yeah,
want to talk, to want to associate with people.
right.
And I think that so here's the thing: should the person going in that we're just describing, should they be saying that, "Hey, I'm such and such. I just arrived, and I am looking for a job. I'm having a little bit of trouble. How are you?" Should they be saying I'm looking for a job, or should they be holding that back? What do you think about that?
I would say not at all, because if you mention you need something, you become needy. That's
Okay.
the last tag you want associated to yourself. I would hold off with that and really focus on how I can help them, or if not how I can help them, at least just put your name out there. If you meet them enough times, eventually something will surface, and then you can maybe ask for an opportunity. I don't think it's a good strategy to come in with an ask because, again, trust. There's no trust, so how can, or not just trust, but there's no clear win in that. I'm always talking about win-win, right? So what win can you offer? How can they win from this? But if you're just asking for something, there's no win.
See, I'm seeing that as a good strategy as well. It's a strategy I like, is that the patience strategy.
Yeah.
Patience is hard. I know you know that. I mean, someone arrives, they've got bills to pay. You know what I mean? They've got, they might have kids I'm just saying it's hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to get, when you need stuff now, it's hard not to get in there. So patience is not, I'm not saying patience is easy, is my point, but a patient approach where you're coming in and you are getting to know the community, becoming part of the community, and happily, you know what I mean, and taking advantage of that, but for everybody. Um, I think you're on the ball there. I think that's a good approach because again, nobody wants to give out handouts. Nobody wants. It's just human nature again. You know what I mean? It's like nobody wants to be like, okay, I don't want to be burdened. I don't want to be this. So if you even if you don't mean to, if you accidentally come off as a burden, then you're maybe shutting doors, and nobody wins. To your point,
Right. Exactly.
the employer doesn't win, you don't win, and the people at the community event don't win. So and then you yourself might get frustrated. So I mean, and it's frustrating to begin with. I guess my question for you, Max, and we'll close this off on this. And thank you, by the way. This has been great. I think there's
My pleasure.
I think there's lots of good info here that if somebody see, the goal of my show is that each one of my episodes kind of has a different audience. In this case, we have two audiences for this. The first audience for this is people in Atlantic Canada who are arriving here. We're talking to people about, okay, what does that look like a little bit? And we're showing them if they run into the kind of thing that might need legal help with or whatever, then we're telling them, okay, there's you and there's people like you that are out there. There are supports, and you can contact you to see if that's going to be a fit. And then if it is, go forward. That's kind of your approach. Would you say I'm right about there? Like, because you take business, so to speak?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay, good. The other audience that we have here for this episode would be Atlantic Canadians who are hiring, or maybe who have opportunity and are looking for good people, merit-based people who are experienced people who know what they're doing, who have credentials, but those credentials might come from another place. Well, these people might be just as capable, if not more capable, at doing your job that you have.
Yeah.
So that audience would be, what we're saying to them is, at least, and again, let me know if I'm off on this, is that, hey, it all starts with just supporting the idea that people coming in can do the job. Any idea that you have that they can't is probably false, because they are individuals with training and experiences just the same as anyone else. And you have to be very careful about your biases, because you might be losing out on an opportunity here.
Yeah.
Would you
Biases play against you? Often when I speak with employers, they're blown away by the incredible immigrant talent. And one of the ways I think why immigrants succeed and can offer more to an employer is the resilience they build when they move to a new country. They become very quick to adapt, very goal oriented. And that's what any employee needs to succeed, I think, in a workplace. And that's what every employer is looking for: someone who can put their company first, someone who can, weather the storm and help them come out on top.
And they become, and they want to become part of the culture, perhaps even the company culture as well.
Right.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Last question for you, and this was written down. So my audience, my main audience, because we just determined like a couple subsects of my audience, I guess. My audience of very small. I just started. You got to start somewhere. Yeah, that's your message too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
I started at zero.
Exactly. Here I am at the ground floor learning from you. There you go. My audience is Atlantic Canada, or anyone who has anything to do with Atlantic Canada, or anyone who is interested in Atlantic Canadian culture, particularly the work that we do here. If my entire dream audience were listening to this right now, and that we're talking everybody, and they're listening, they're really paying attention, what's your message to them? What do they need to hear from you? What would you have to tell them to finish off this episode?
I would tell them that a new era is coming. Things are getting much more interesting and dynamic with the development of artificial intelligence. And that's one of the things we're doing now, replacing expensive lawyers with AI. And there's tremendous opportunity that's going to come with that. It's important to develop, to grow, to not be scared of embracing innovation. And maybe one day we can see Atlantic Canada rise to the top of that innovation game. So it's a good place to be in right now.
I'm going to leave that there. For Max Medyk, which camera I got to? That one. For Max Medyk, I'm Glenn Friel. Thanks for watching this episode of The Business of Making Art. Take care. Thank you too.
Thank you. Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, it was great.
Now we just kind of run off like we're talking.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. What do you think?